The United States operates the world's most powerful military, with a defense budget exceeding $800 billion annually, and over 1.3 million active personnel deployed across every continent. This is every major weapon system operated by the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. We start our list with tanks, Abrams. This is the tank that made the phrase shock and awe mean something real. Since Desert Storm, the Abrams has been the gold standard for main battle tanks, and the current M1A2 variant packs, targeting systems that would have seemed like science fiction 30 years ago. 70 tons of composite armor, a 1,500 horsepower turbine engine that drinks fuel like a frat house on spring break, and a 120mm gun that can punch through anything on treads, M10 Booker. The new kid on the block that's solving a problem the Army's had for decades. How do you get serious firepower to light infantry without hauling a 70-ton Abrams across the world? This mobile protected firepower platform brings a 105mm gun with enough punch to handle most threats, but at 38 tons, it can actually deploy with airborne and light units. Think of it as the Abrams' faster, lighter nephew, who still hits hard enough to matter. Moving on to armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles. M2 and M3 Bradley fighting vehicle. If you served in a mechanized unit anytime in the last 40 years, you know this beast intimately. The M2 hauls infantry, while its 25mm chain gun and TOW missiles make life miserable for anything that moves. And the M3 variant trades the troop compartment for extra reconnaissance gear. Yeah, it's expensive to keep running and weighs more than some countries' entire militaries, but it's still out there getting the job done. Stryker IFV variants with 30mm cannons. The Army took the basic Stryker and said, what if we gave it teeth? The M1296 Dragoon and M1304 ICVVA1 both mount 30mm autocannons that turn these wheeled platforms into legitimate fighting vehicles. They're not going toe-to-toe with tanks, but for rapid response units that need to move fast and hit hard, these variants deliver. LAV-25. The Marine Corps has been running these wheeled scouts since the 80s, and they're still pulling their weight in expeditionary operations. Light armor means you're trading protection for speed. But when your doctrine is built around getting there first and moving faster than the enemy can react, that 25mm cannon and 8-wheeled mobility make a lot of sense. ACV-30. This is what happens when the Marines look at their amphibious assault plans and decide they need more punch coming off the boats. The ACV-30 is still in development, but it's designed to give ship-to-shore operations the kind of firepower that makes beach landings less suicide than they used to be. Stryker anti-tank variants. 2 generations of the same idea mount TOW missiles on wheels and go hunting for enemy armor. The newer M1253A1 brings better survivability and electronics, but both variants rely on hitting first from distance because neither one wants to trade punches with a real tank. LAV-AT, the Marine Corps version of the mobile tank killer, built on the same LAV chassis that prioritizes speed over armor. It's got TOW missiles and the mobility to get into position before the enemy knows what's happening. But once you're spotted, better have an exit plan ready. These 8-wheeled troop haulers redefined how the Army thinks about rapid deployment. The original M1126 proved the concept, and the upgraded M1256 adds better protection and modern electronics without losing the speed that makes Strykers so useful for getting infantry where they need to be fast. ACVP. The Marines finally got tired of riding Vietnam-era amphibious tractors and built themselves a proper, modern, amphibious personnel carrier. The ACVP is designed to survive the trip from ship to shore while keeping Marines protected and mobile once they hit the beach. LAV log. Not every armored vehicle is about firepower. Sometimes you need to move supplies and support gear under protection. The LAV log keeps Marine logistics moving in contested areas where soft-skin trucks would get shredded. This aluminum box on tracks has been around since Kennedy was president, and somehow it's still in service. Simple, reliable, and cheap to run. But by modern standards, it's about as protective as a screen door, which is why it's finally being retired from anything resembling a real fight. When IEDs became the biggest killer in Iraq and Afghanistan, the military rushed these South African mine-resistant vehicles into service. They saved countless lives against roadside bombs, but they're slow, uncomfortable, and built for one specific threat that isn't as common anymore, RG-33. The bigger, meaner version of the RG-31 with even more blast protection. It's basically a bunker on wheels, which is great for surviving explosions, but terrible for maneuverability and going anywhere that isn't a paved road. Cougar. If you deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan anytime between 2005 and 2015, you probably rode in one of these. The Cougar became synonymous with MRAP operations, offering solid protection against IEDs, while being common enough that everyone got familiar with its quirks. International Max Pro. When the Pentagon needed MRAPs fast, International built thousands of these truck-based platforms in record time. They work, they protect crews from blasts, but they sit so high off the ground that rollovers became a serious problem in rough terrain. The less famous MRAP that quietly did its job throughout the counterinsurgency years. Built on a heavy truck chassis with upgraded components, the Cayman proved that you don't need flashy marketing when reliability and protection speak for themselves. Oshkosh MATV. This is what happens when the military learns from early MRAP mistakes and builds a vehicle that can actually go off-road. The MATV combines blast protection with independent suspension and real mobility, making it the MRAP you'd actually want if you're leaving the pavement. Buffalo, the bomb squad's best friend, built with a long articulated arm that lets crews investigate and disable IEDs without anyone stepping outside. It's slow, it's ungainly, but when you're the one clearing routes, you want every bit of armor and standoff distance you can get. Humvee armored variants, the light utility vehicle that became an icon and then became a liability. The Humvee was never designed to take the punishment that Iraq and Afghanistan dished out, and bolting armor onto it only made it slower without making it truly safe. Joint Light Tactical Vehicle. The JLTV is what the Humvee should have been if it had been designed in this century. Built from day one with armor, blast protection, and modern electronics. It's heavier and more complex than its predecessor, but it's also exponentially more likely to bring its crew home. Before MRAPs flooded the inventory, the M1117 filled the gap for military police and convoy security. It offered real protection when Humvees were getting torn apart, but with better options available now, it's being put out to pasture. M1200 Armored Knight. This reconnaissance and fire support vehicle isn't winning any beauty contests, but it keeps artillery observers and forward controllers alive while they direct fires from positions that would be suicide in an unarmored vehicle. Infantry Squad Vehicle. The ISV takes everything we learned from decades of up-armoring vehicles and throws it in the dumpster. It's a lightweight buggy that can be slung under a helicopter, prioritizing speed and air mobility over protection because sometimes getting there first matters more than arriving in a tank. M1297 Ground Mobility Vehicle. Special Operations Forces need vehicles that can keep up with their operational tempo, and the GMV delivers speed, payload capacity, and helicopter compatibility. Armor, that's what surprise and violence of action are for. M1161 Growler. The Marines built this lightweight all-terrain vehicle specifically to fit inside V-22 Ospreys. It's basically a militarized side-by-side UTV, which means it offers zero protection but gets small units moving fast once they're on the ground. Light Strike Vehicle. Fast, simple, and built for hit-and-run operations, where speed is your only defense. These aren't meant for conventional warfare. They're for getting in, doing damage, and getting out before anyone knows what happened. Advanced Light Strike Vehicle. Take the original Light Strike Vehicle concept and refine it with lessons learned from actual operations. It's still all about speed and agility, but with improvements that make it more reliable for special operations missions. Ranger Special Operations Vehicle. The 75th Ranger Regiment's ride of choice for rapid assault operations. Purpose-built for their specific mission set, it sacrifices every ounce of protection for speed, payload, and the ability to get Rangers where they need to be before the enemy realizes the fight has started. Moving on to engineering and support vehicles. M939 Truck. These older cargo haulers have been moving supplies since before half the Army was born. They're reliable enough that some units still use them, but everything from protection to fuel efficiency screams, "Please retire me already," which is exactly what's happening. Family of medium tactical vehicles. If logistics won a war, and it does, then the FMTV is why America wins. These modular trucks haul everything from ammunition to water to soldiers themselves, and they're so common that complaining about riding in the back of one is practically a military tradition. MTVR. The Marine Corps wanted a truck that could handle beaches, mountains, and everything in between without complaining. The medium tactical vehicle replacement is their answer. Unglamorous, brutally effective, and built for places where roads are more of a suggestion than reality. M915. This heavy tractor exists to haul the stuff that's too big for normal trucks. It's not sexy, it's not fast, but when you need to move a container full of spare parts across a continent, this is what gets the job done. HEMT. The heavy expanded mobility tactical truck is basically the 18-wheeler of the military world. Fuel, cargo, recovery if it's heavy and needs to go somewhere. There's probably a HEMTT variant designed specifically for that mission. Oshkosh Heavy Equipment Transporter. Moving a 70-ton Abrams under its own power eats through fuel, wears out tracks, and wastes time. The Het loads that beast onto a trailer and hauls it wherever it needs to go, saving the tank for actual fighting instead of road marches. Lark V. This amphibious cargo hauler has been moving supplies from ship to shore since Vietnam. And yeah, It shows. It's slow, it's old, but when you need to get cargo across water without a proper dock, sometimes the dinosaurs still earn their keep. Imagine a bulldozer that can build you a fighting position while people are actively trying to kill you. That's the M9, tracked, armored, and ready to move dirt under fire when combat engineers need to reshape the battlefield. Caterpillar D9 armored. The Israelis figured out that if you wrap enough armor around a massive bulldozer, it becomes an unstoppable force for clearing obstacles and structures. The US took notes, and now we've got our own armored D9s doing the same work. JCB, HMEE. Combat engineers needed something that could dig, lift, and survive small arms fire without being as slow as a tracked vehicle. The High Mobility Engineer Excavator delivers wheeled mobility and armored protection for the kind of work that keeps armies moving forward. Armored vehicle launched bridges. The Army runs 3 different generations of bridge launchers, the M104, M1074, and M60 AVLB, because rivers and gaps don't care about your operational timeline. The M1074 is the modern solution, while the M60 version is still around from the Cold War, proving that good ideas age well. Husky, VMMD. This mine detection vehicle looks like a mechanical insect, and that's kind of the point. It uses ground-penetrating radar to find buried explosives before they find you, trading armor for sensors because its job is to detect threats, not survive them. M1150 Assault Breacher Vehicle. When you absolutely need to punch through a minefield right now, this Abrams-based monster brings line charges and a mine plow to clear a path. It's built on a tank chassis because clearing obstacles under fire requires the kind of protection that only 70 tons of armor can provide. M1132 and M1257, A1 Striker Engineer support vehicles. These Striker variants keep combat engineers rolling with the mechanized formations they support. The M1257A1 adds improved survivability and modern systems, but both exist to make sure engineers can do their job without slowing down the advance. M1133 and M1254, A1 Striker medical evacuation variants. Getting wounded soldiers off the battlefield fast saves lives. And these armored ambulances keep medics and casualties protected during the most dangerous moments. The M1254A1 brings better electronics and survivability because medical evacuation vehicles are high-value targets that need every advantage they can get. Max Pro-DXM ambulance. When the threat is IEDs and roadside bombs, you need an ambulance with serious blast protection. This MRAP-based medical vehicle prioritizes keeping casualties and medical crews alive during evacuation, even if it sacrifices speed and maneuverability. Medical evacuation vehicle. This is what happens when you take an already outdated platform and convert it into an ambulance. It works in a pinch, but limited protection means it's being replaced as soon as better options become available. Striker command variants. Modern warfare runs on information, and these mobile command posts keep commanders connected to their units without being stuck in a tent somewhere. The M1255, A1 upgrades networking and battlefield management systems for faster decision-making. LAVC-2, the Marine Corps version of a mobile headquarters built on the LAV chassis to keep up with fast-moving expeditionary operations. It trades weapons for communications gear because coordinating the battle is more important than fighting it directly. ACVC, the command variant of the Marines' new amphibious vehicle family designed to coordinate ship-to-shore operations and inland maneuvers while staying protected and mobile enough to keep up with the units it's commanding. M577 command variants. These tracked command vehicles give staff, officers, and planners a protected space to coordinate operations in armored formations. They're based on the MON 13, which tells you everything about their age, but they're still around because replacing entire command infrastructure takes time and money. M1135 Striker NBCRV. Nuclear, biological, and chemical threats require specialized detection equipment, and this Striker variant carries the sensors needed to identify contamination while staying mobile. It's not meant for fighting, it's meant for keeping everyone else alive by finding threats before they become casualties. Striker fire support variants. These Striker variants coordinate artillery strikes and close air support, using advanced sensors and communications gear instead of heavy weapons. The M1251A1 improves targeting and digital connectivity, letting fire support teams call in devastating firepower while staying close to the action. M1127 Striker Reconnaissance Vehicle. Built for scouting ahead of mechanized formations, this Striker variant prioritizes sensors and situational awareness over armor and guns. Its job is to find the enemy and report back, not win the fight alone. Striker Mortar Carrier variants. These vehicles mount 120mm mortars inside armored Strikers, giving mechanized units organic, indirect fire support that can keep up with the advance. The M1252A1 brings improved fire control systems for faster, more accurate fire missions. LAVM. the Marine Corps mortar carrier built on the LAV chassis, designed to deliver indirect fire while maintaining the speed and mobility that Marine doctrine demands. It's lightly armored but responsive, fitting the Marines' emphasis on maneuver over protection. Mu-1064 mortar carrier. This tracked mortar platform mounts a 120mm mortar on the aging Monet 13 chassis. It still shows up because it works, and units already have them, even though nobody's pretending it's a modern solution. Moving on to artillery, 777A2. This 155mm howitzer is what happens when you need serious firepower, but also need to sling it under a helicopter or drop it from a plane. It's unarmored and exposed, but when you can hit targets 30 kilometers away with precision-guided rounds, you don't need to be sitting next to them. 119. The lighter, more nimble cousin of the big guns, this 105mm howitzer goes where heavier artillery can't. Airborne and light infantry units love it because you can set it up fast, move it fast, and still provide enough fire support to make the enemy seriously reconsider their life choices. 109 Paladin. The 109, a 6, and 109, a 7 are tracked, self-propelled howitzers that let artillery keep up with armored formations while staying protected. Modern variants bring better automation and reliability, so crews can fire, displace, and keep moving before counter-battery radar figures out where they were shooting from. 142 HIMARS. High mobility artillery rocket system changed the game by putting devastating long-range strike capability on a truck that can be flown anywhere in a Cone 30. It hits hard, moves fast, and gets out before anyone can respond, which is exactly why every near-peer adversary has spent the last few years trying to figure out how to counter it. 270 multiple launch rocket system. The tracked big brother of HIMARS that carries twice the rockets and operates with heavy armored units. It's slower to deploy and harder to move strategically. But when you need sustained rocket fire supporting a major offensive, the 270 brings the volume. Moving on to air defense, mount some Stinger missiles on a Humvee, add a targeting pod, and you've got the Avenger system that's been protecting rear areas and convoy routes from low-flying threats for decades. It's not stopping cruise missiles or high-altitude bombers, but for helicopters and ground attack aircraft that get too close, those Stingers are still plenty deadly. After spending 20 years fighting enemies with no air force, the Army suddenly remembered that Russia and China have helicopters and drones. M-SHORAD, that's Mobile Short-Range Air Defense, combines Stinger missiles, a 30mm cannon, and modern sensors on a Stryker chassis to give maneuver units organic protection against aerial threats. Stryker DE M-SHORAD. This is the laser version that sounds like science fiction but actually exists in testing. Instead of missiles, it uses directed energy to burn drones and small aircraft out of the sky. The technology works, but is still experimental, and nobody's quite sure how well lasers perform when the weather doesn't cooperate. When Saddam Hussein started launching Scud missiles at Israel during Desert Storm, Patriot became a household name overnight. This long-range system intercepts everything from aircraft to cruise missiles to ballistic missiles, but it requires massive logistical support and a network of sensors to be effective. THAAD. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense is the last line of defense against incoming ballistic missiles. While Patriot can do multiple jobs, THAAD has one mission: knock down ballistic missiles during their final descent before they hit their targets. It's strategic level protection deployed to defend entire regions, not individual units. Moving on to attack aircraft. A-10C, Thunderbolt II. The Warthog is what happens when you build an airplane around a 30mm Gatling gun that sounds like God tearing a phone book in half. It's slow, ugly, and completely unafraid of flying low enough to make eye contact with the enemy, which is exactly why ground troops love it and Air Force generals keep trying to retire it. OA-1K. This light attack turboprop is designed for permissive environments where nobody's shooting advanced surface-to-air missiles at you. It's cheap to operate, stays airborne forever, and works great for counterinsurgency, but don't expect it to survive anywhere near a real air defense network. A C-130J. Take a Cone 30 cargo plane, stuff it full of cannons and howitzers, and you've got a flying gun platform that can put rounds on target with surgical precision. The AC-130 gunship owns the night in permissive airspace, but it needs air superiority to operate because it's about as maneuverable as a school bus. B-1B Lancer. The Bone, yeah, everyone calls it that, was built to penetrate Soviet airspace at supersonic speeds during the Cold War. These days, it hauls massive conventional weapon loads for long-range strikes, but keeping these aging bombers flying requires maintenance crews who practically live inside them. B-52H Stratofortress. This bomber has been in service since before some of its pilots' grandparents were born, and it's still dropping ordnance because nothing else can carry that much payload that far. It relies on standoff weapons to stay out of range of modern air defenses. But when you need to put a lot of bombs on target, the buff gets the call. B-2 Spirit. Stealth technology turned into an airplane that costs more than some countries' entire defense budgets. The B-2 can penetrate the most advanced air defense networks on Earth to strike high-value targets. But with only 20 built, every single one is treated like the strategic asset it is. B-21 Raider, the next-generation stealth bomber that's supposed to replace everything older while being cheaper to build and operate than the B-2. It's still early in its service life, but if it delivers on its promises, this is the bomber that'll be flying combat missions for the next 50 years. F-22 Raptor. This fifth-generation air superiority fighter is what you get when stealth, supercruise, and thrust vectoring come together in one package. The Raptor dominates air-to-air combat so thoroughly that its biggest problem is not having any peer adversaries to fight, and the fact that production ended means we're stuck with the 187 we built. 15C Eagle. The air superiority fighter that went over 100 combat kills without a single loss in air-to-air combat. Even after decades of service, the 15C remains one of the most capable interceptors in the inventory, with upgrades keeping it relevant until newer platforms can fully replace it. 15E Strike Eagle. Take the 15's air superiority pedigree and add precision strike capability, and you get the Strike Eagle. This twin-seat multi-role fighter excels at deep strike missions and close air support while still being able to handle itself in air combat if things get messy. 15EX. The latest Eagle variant that takes the proven 15 airframe and packs it with modern avionics, weapon systems, and capabilities. It's designed to complement fifth-generation fighters while being cheaper to buy and operate, giving the Air Force a cost-effective platform that can still go toe-to-toe with advanced threats. F-16 Fighting Falcon. The Viper has been the multi-role fighter of choice for the U.S. and dozens of allied nations for over 40 years. Agile, versatile, and continuously upgraded, the F-16 handles everything from air superiority to close air support to interdiction, and it's still being produced for export customers today. FA-18 Sea Hornet, the carrier-based multi-role fighter that proved the Navy and Marine Corps could have one platform do it all. Air combat, ground attack, reconnaissance, the Hornet handled every mission thrown at it, from carrier decks and austere forward bases for decades. FA-18E and F Super Hornet, the bigger Badger evolution of the original Hornet, with improved range, payload, and avionics. The Super Hornet became the Navy's primary strike fighter and continues to be the most common sight on carrier flight decks today. F-35, a Lightning II, the Air Force's fifth-generation stealth multi-role fighter that combines low observable technology with advanced sensors and network integration. The F-35A's situational awareness lets pilots see the entire battle space before the enemy even knows they're there, making it the cornerstone of future air operations. F-35B Lightning II, the Marine Corps version with short takeoff and vertical landing capability that lets it operate from amphibious assault ships and austere forward bases. The F-35B brings fifth-generation stealth and sensors to expeditionary operations, giving Marines the kind of air support that was impossible just a generation ago. A V-8B Harrier, the jump jet that defined Marine Corps aviation for over 3 decades. Vertical takeoff and landing capability let the Harrier operate from places no conventional fighter could reach, providing close air support from forward bases and ship decks. It's being replaced by the F-35B, but the Harrier proved that tactical flexibility matters as much as raw performance. P-3 Orion. This Cold War-era maritime patrol aircraft spent decades hunting Soviet submarines and is still around in limited numbers. Age and maintenance demands have pushed it toward retirement as the Pate takes over. But some P-3s keep flying specialized missions where their long experience matters more than cutting-edge technology. The modern submarine hunter built on a 737 airliner airframe combines speed, range, and advanced sensors to track enemy submarines and surface vessels across vast ocean areas. But it works best as part of a networked kill chain rather than operating solo. Moving on to support aircraft. C-5M Super Galaxy. When you need to move an Abrams tank halfway around the world, this is the only plane that can swallow it whole. The Super Galaxy is the largest aircraft in the U.S. inventory, capable of intercontinental strategic lift that makes global power projection possible, even if it costs a fortune to operate and needs a proper runway to land. C-17 Globemaster III. This is the aircraft that changed how America deploys military power by combining strategic range with tactical flexibility. The C-17 can haul heavy equipment across oceans and then land on short, rough airstrips that would make other cargo planes turn around, which is why it became the most valuable transport in the inventory. C-130 Hercules. The older H and E models have been hauling troops, supplies, and everything else the military needs to move for decades. They're still flying because the C-130 is damn near indestructible, but age and maintenance costs mean most are being replaced by newer variants. C-130J Super Hercules. The modernized Hercules with better engines, avionics, and fuel efficiency that can do everything from troop transport to special operations to aerial resupply. The J model keeps the rugged reliability that made the C-130 legendary, while adding the technology needed for 21st century operations. MC-130J. Take AC-130J and optimize it for sneaking special operations forces into hostile territory at low altitude. The MC-130J can refuel helicopters mid-flight and operate in conditions where getting caught means everybody dies, making it the ride of choice for missions nobody talks about. The combat search and rescue variant that stays airborne for hours, looking for downed aircrew over water or hostile territory. It carries extra fuel tanks and rescue equipment instead of cargo, because bringing people home matters more than moving supplies. LC-130H. Strap skis onto a C-130 and you get the only aircraft that can operate in Antarctica and the Arctic year-round. The LC-130H keeps polar research stations supplied and supports military operations where runways are made of ice instead of concrete. C-27J Spartan. This medium-lift transport fills the gap between helicopters and full-size cargo planes for shorter tactical missions. It's not hauling tanks, but for getting smaller loads into tight spaces quickly. The Spartan earns its keep. VC-25, Air Force One, the most famous aircraft in the world. These modified 747s are flying command centers that keep the president connected and protected during crises, with enough fuel capacity and communications gear to function as the White House at 40,000 feet, C-32. The backup executive transport that moves the vice president and other senior officials when they need secure, reliable air travel. It's built on a 757 airframe and focuses on communications and comfort rather than cargo capacity. C-40. Think of this as the military version of a 737, optimized for moving passengers and small cargo for government officials. It operates more like a commercial airliner than a military transport, which is exactly what certain missions require. C-146A. Special operations needed an aircraft that could land on short, rough airstrips while carrying enough cargo to matter. The C-146A delivers that capability for regional missions where larger aircraft simply can't operate. CN-235 and HC-144. These twin-engine turboprops prioritize endurance and operating costs over raw performance, making them perfect for transport, surveillance, and maritime patrol missions where staying airborne matters more than going fast. C-2A Greyhound. The carrier onboard delivery aircraft that's been the Navy's logistics lifeline, moving personnel and critical parts between shore bases and carriers at sea. It's not glamorous, but without the Greyhound keeping carriers supplied, naval aviation grinds to a halt. C-26D, a small, versatile transport that handles light cargo and surveillance missions, where flexibility matters more than capacity. It supports specialized regional tasks that don't require heavy lift capability. C-21A. This light jet handles short-range passenger transport and liaison duties with a focus on efficiency. It's the military equivalent of a business jet, getting people where they need to be without wasting fuel or money. C-12 and MC-12. These twin turboprops support everything from passenger transport to intelligence collection, with surveillance variants optimized for endurance and observation. They work best where flexibility and persistence matter more than raw payload capacity. C-20. Small executive transport for senior military leadership that prioritizes secure communications and reliable point-to-point travel. It's not moving cargo, it's making sure generals and admirals get where they need to be. C-37, long-range executive transport built for high-level government travel that needs to cover intercontinental distances. The C-37 emphasizes comfort, global reach, and secure communications for VIP passengers. C-145. This rugged transport supports special operations and partner nation training in austere environments. It's built to operate from rough airfields, where more delicate aircraft would get destroyed. E-2 Hawkeye, the carrier-based radar platform that acts as the eyes of the strike group, detecting threats and coordinating fighters from above the fleet. The distinctive rotating radar dome makes it instantly recognizable, and its mission makes carrier operations possible. E-3 AWACS, Airborne Warning Control System changed air warfare by putting powerful radar and battle management capability at high altitude, where it can see everything. The E-3 coordinates entire air campaigns, but it's vulnerable and needs fighter protection to survive. E-7, Wedgetail, the modern replacement for the aging E-3 with updated sensors and networking that keep it relevant against modern threats. Australia proved the concept, and now the US is finally buying it to replace AWACS platforms that have been flying since the Cold War. E-4B. When nuclear war breaks out or civilization collapses, this airborne command post keeps national leadership connected and in control. The E-4B can survive electromagnetic pulses, stay airborne for days with refueling, and maintain communications when everything on the ground goes dark. E-6B Mercury. The aircraft that maintains the connection between nuclear command authority and ballistic missile submarines hiding in the ocean depths. The E-6B's mission is so specialized and so critical that it operates in a world most people never think about. E-8 JSTARS, Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System, tracks ground vehicles and coordinates airstrikes against enemy formations across hundreds of miles. It revolutionized ground surveillance, but age and vulnerability to modern missiles limit where it can safely operate. U-2S, the high-altitude spy plane that's been collecting intelligence since the 50s and somehow still flying. The U-2 operates above 70,000 feet, where most threats can't reach it. But modern surface-to-air missiles have made its mission increasingly dangerous. RC-135. These specialized variants conduct signals, intelligence, and electronic surveillance from long-range, gathering communications and radar missions that provide strategic awareness. Multiple versions exist because different missions require different sensor packages. CL-650. A small reconnaissance platform used primarily by the Army for tactical intelligence collection. It emphasizes sensor capability and endurance over speed, operating where larger aircraft would attract too much attention. MC-12 and RC-12. These intelligence platforms provide persistent observation, supporting ground forces in permissive environments. They're optimized for watching and reporting rather than surviving contested airspace. KC-135, the tanker that's been keeping combat aircraft airborne since Eisenhower was president. The KC-135 provides the aerial refueling that gives US air power global reach, even though aging airframes make maintenance crews work overtime. KC-46A, the modern tanker that's supposed to replace the KC-135 fleet with updated avionics and defensive systems. Development problems delayed its rollout, but the Pegasus eventually became operational and started taking over long-term refueling missions. KC-130J, the Marine Corps version of the C-130J optimized for aerial refueling and transport in expeditionary environments. It can operate from austere forward bases, keeping marine aviation supplied and refueled without needing established infrastructure. EA-18G Growler, the electronic warfare variant of the Super Hornet that protects strike packages by jamming enemy radars and communications. The Growler doesn't carry bombs, it carries jamming pods that make air defenses useless, clearing the way for other aircraft to do their jobs. EC-130H and EC-130J. These electronic attack aircraft disrupt enemy command and control from standoff range. They focus on degrading communications and radar networks rather than surviving close-range combat. EP-3E. This unarmed signals intelligence aircraft collects electronic emissions across vast areas, gathering data on enemy capabilities and activities. It relies on distance and escorts for protection, because its mission is listening, not fighting. EO-5, the small electronic surveillance platform that supports ground forces with intelligence collection in permissive environments. Persistence and sensor capability matter more than survivability for this specialized mission. EA-37B, the next generation electronic warfare aircraft, designed to replace older platforms with modern cyber and electronic attack capabilities. It emphasizes disrupting enemy networks and systems over traditional jamming alone. F-117 Aggressor, the retired stealth fighter that got a second life, simulating low observable threats in training exercises. It teaches pilots how to fight enemies they can barely detect, though it's scheduled for final retirement by 2036. F-5 F&N Aggressor. These lightweight fighters play the bad guys in training, simulating enemy aircraft with their maneuverability and different flight characteristics. The Navy and Marines use them to give pilots realistic air combat experience before they face real threats. T-38 Talon. This supersonic trainer has been teaching Air Force pilots high-speed flight and formation flying for over 60 years. Generations of fighter and bomber pilots learned their trade in the T-38 before moving on to frontline aircraft. T-45 C. Goshawk, the carrier-based trainer that prepares Navy pilots for the unique challenges of launching from and landing on aircraft carriers. Carrier aviation is one of the hardest things pilots do, and the T-45C is where they learn not to screw it up. T-7, a Red Hawk, the brand new advanced trainer that's replacing aging T-38s with modern technology and capabilities. The T-7A brings 21st century avionics and design to pilot training, preparing the next generation of Air Force aviators. T-1A, Jayhawk. This twin-engine jet trainer prepares Air Force pilots for multi-engine operations before they transition to tankers, transports, or bombers. It simulates the performance of larger aircraft without the massive operating costs. Tu-2S, a specialized training platform for reconnaissance operations that teaches pilots the unique skills needed for high-altitude intelligence gathering missions. It's a niche aircraft for a niche mission set. TC-135, the training version of the RC-135 reconnaissance plane that gives students hands-on experience with complex intelligence systems. Future reconnaissance crews learn their trade here before operating the real thing. T-44C, the Navy's multi-engine trainer that prepares aviators for the complexities of flying larger aircraft. It's an essential stepping stone between primary training and operating actual fleet aircraft. T-6 Texan II, the primary trainer used by both the Air Force and Navy that teaches new pilots the fundamentals of military flight. Almost every American military pilot has time in a T-6, making it one of the most important aircraft nobody outside the military thinks about. Moving on to helicopters, AH-1Z Viper. The Marine Corps took their aging Cobra attack helicopters and rebuilt them into something that belongs in this century. The Viper brings modern avionics, upgraded weapons, and the kind of survivability improvements that matter when you're flying low and slow over hostile territory, providing fire support. AH-64 Apache. This is the attack helicopter that made Tank Killer an actual job description. The Apache's longbow radar and Hellfire missiles can engage armor from miles away, and its 30mm chain gun handles everything else that needs destroying on the battlefield. MH-6 Little Bird. Special operations needed a helicopter small enough to land on rooftops and fast enough to get in and out before anyone reacts. The Little Bird delivers exactly that, a tiny platform that can carry shooters or mount weapons depending on the mission, perfect for raids where stealth and speed matter more than armor. CH-47 Chinook, the twin-rotor heavy lifter that's been hauling troops, artillery, and everything else the Army needs moved since Vietnam. The Chinook can carry loads that would break other helicopters, making it irreplaceable for getting heavy equipment into places where roads don't exist. MH-47G Chinook. Take a regular Chinook and add special operations, modifications, extended range, aerial refueling, and all the avionics needed for deep penetration missions. The MH-47G gets Special Forces teams and their equipment into denied territory and brings them back out again. UH-1Y Venom, the Marine Corps version of the legendary Huey bloodline, modernized with improved lift capacity and avionics. The Venom handles everything from troop transport to medevac to close air support, giving Marine ground forces the versatile rotary wing support they need. UH-1N Huey. The Air Force is still flying Hueys for utility, transport, and search and rescue because sometimes the old reliable solutions just keep working. It's not fancy, but reliability and versatility have kept this Vietnam-era design relevant for decades. HH-60 Jayhawk. The Coast Guard's medium-range rescue helicopter that pulls people out of sinking ships and hurricane zones. The Jayhawk operates in conditions that would ground most aircraft, deploying rescue swimmers and hoisting survivors to safety when seconds matter. HH-60 Pavehawk. The Air Force's combat search and rescue variant equipped for pulling downed aircrew out of hostile territory. Night vision, defensive weapons, and the willingness to fly into contested airspace make the Pavehawk the last hope for pilots who punch out behind enemy lines. MH-60 Blackhawk, the multi-mission variant used for everything from inserting special operations teams to medical evacuation under fire. The MH-60 takes the standard Blackhawk platform and adds the specialized equipment needed for high-risk missions. UH-60 Blackhawk, the utility helicopter that replaced the Huey and became just as iconic. If you served in the Army over the last 40 years, you've either flown in a Blackhawk or watched one overhead, because it does everything from moving troops to resupply to casualty evacuation. VH-60N White Hawk, part of the Marine One fleet that transports the president, equipped with communications gear and defensive systems that turn a standard Black Hawk into a flying secure facility. When Marine One consists of multiple helicopters, this is one of the aircraft in the formation, VH-3D Sea King, the older presidential transport helicopter that's been part of Marine One for decades. It's being replaced by newer platforms, but the Sea King served as the primary presidential helicopter through multiple administrations. VH-92, the newest Marine One helicopter bringing modern technology and improved safety systems to presidential transport. The VH-92 represents the cutting edge of VIP helicopter design with state-of-the-art communications and defensive capabilities. SH-60 Seahawk, the Navy's carrier-based multi-mission helicopter that hunts submarines, conducts search and rescue, and moves supplies between ships. The Seahawk's ability to operate from destroyer-sized flight decks makes it the most common helicopter in naval aviation. V-280 Valor, the tilt-rotor that's supposed to replace the Black Hawk by combining helicopter vertical takeoff with airplane speed and range. The V-280 is still in development, but if it delivers on its promises, it'll revolutionize how the Army thinks about air assault operations. MH-139 Grey Wolf, the Air Force's newest utility helicopter, tasked with protecting intercontinental ballistic missile fields and other critical assets. The Grey Wolf replaced aging Hueys with modern technology and better performance for security missions. HH-65 Dolphin, the Coast Guard's light helicopter optimized for short-range maritime rescue and law enforcement. The Dolphin handles missions where the larger Jayhawk would be overkill, from intercepting drug smugglers to pulling fishermen off disabled boats. UH-72 Lakota, a commercial helicopter adopted by the Army for training, medical evacuation, and light transport. The Lakota's civilian origins mean it's cheaper to operate than purpose-built military helicopters for missions that don't require combat capability. Mi-24 Aggressor. The Army operates actual Russian attack helicopters to simulate enemy forces in training. Flying against a real hind gives pilots and ground troops realistic experience with the threats they might face, which beats reading about them in a manual. MIL Mi-8 and Mi-17 Aggressor. More Russian helicopters used in training scenarios to give American forces realistic exposure to foreign aircraft designs. These transport helicopters show up in enough conflict zones that pilots need to recognize them instantly. TH-57B&C Sea Ranger, the Navy's primary training helicopter that teaches student pilots basic rotary wing flight before they progress to fleet aircraft. Based on a proven civilian design, the Sea Ranger provided decades of reliable training service. TH-73A Thrasher, the new Navy training helicopter replacing the aging Sea Ranger fleet with modern avionics and systems. The Thrasher introduces student pilots to the technology they'll use in operational helicopters from day one of training. TH-67 Creek, the Army's primary training helicopter built on a civilian airframe for cost-effective flight instruction. Student pilots get their initial helicopter experience in the Creek before moving on to more complex military aircraft. TH-1H Iroquois, a training variant of the classic Huey used by the Air Force to teach helicopter fundamentals. Students learn basic flight operations and utility missions in an aircraft, simple enough to focus on flying skills rather than complex systems. Moving on to unmanned aerial vehicles. MQ-9 Reaper. Imagine being able to watch a target for 16 hours straight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, all while the crew sits in an air-conditioned trailer half a world away. That's the Reaper's specialty long-endurance armed surveillance that can track, identify, and eliminate targets in places where sending pilots would be side or overkill. MQ-1 Sea Gray Eagle. The Army wanted their own drone that answers directly to ground commanders instead of waiting for Air Force assets to become available. The Gray Eagle provides that organic capability, giving brigade commanders persistent eyes over the battlefield with the option to engage targets when the opportunity presents itself. RQ-4 Global Hawk. Flying at 60,000 feet for over 30 hours at a time, the Global Hawk watches entire countries the way most drones watch neighborhoods. It replaced manned spy planes for strategic reconnaissance because why risk pilots when a robot can do the same job while covering areas the size of Illinois in a single flight? RQ-7 Shadow. Brigade-level commanders needed their own tactical drone that doesn't require calling up the chain for approval. The Shadow launches from a catapult, flies for hours, providing real-time video of what's happening just beyond visual range, and gives ground units the intelligence they need to make decisions fast. RQ-11 Raven. Soldiers hand-launch this backpack-sized drone, like throwing a paper airplane, then use it to peek over the next hill or around the next building. The Raven democratized aerial reconnaissance by putting eyes in the sky directly into infantry squads' hands, without requiring pilots, runways, or approval from anyone. RQ-20 Puma. Special operations and marine units needed something portable that could operate from ships or austere bases without making much noise. The Puma delivers quiet, hand-launched surveillance for coastal operations and tight environments where larger drones would be impractical or too loud. Scan Eagle. This catapult-launched drone has been providing persistent maritime surveillance from Navy ships for years, staying airborne for over 20 hours without needing a runway. It's become the standard for ship-based reconnaissance because it gives commanders continuous coverage of the surrounding ocean without the logistics burden of helicopter operations. The military operates dozens of other drone systems, ranging from tiny quadcopters that fit in a cargo pocket to experimental high-altitude platforms, testing the boundaries of autonomous flight. Each fills a specific niche, some for explosive ordnance disposal, others for communications relay, chemical detection, or swarm tactics. But these represent the workhorses that define American unmanned aviation today. That brings us to naval vessels, Gerald R. Ford class. The newest supercarrier on the planet represents everything the Navy learned from 70 years of carrier operations. Electromagnetic catapults replace steam. Advanced reactors generate enough power to run a small city. And the whole ship operates with 700 fewer crew than a Nimitz, which means more space for ammunition, fuel, and the aircraft that actually matter. The Ford class isn't just evolution, it's a complete reimagining of how carriers work. Nimitz class. These nuclear-powered giants have been the center of American naval power since the 70s, and sailors who served aboard them will tell you there's nothing quite like launching aircraft from a floating city in the middle of the ocean. 10 ships, each carrying 90 aircraft, each capable of operating for 25 years without refueling. The Nimitz class proved that supercarriers aren't just about projecting power, they're about being able to show up anywhere on Earth and stay there as long as necessary. Blue Ridge class. Admirals need somewhere to run an entire fleet during complex operations, and these command ships provide exactly that, a floating headquarters packed with communications gear and planning spaces. The Blue Ridge and Mount Whitney have served as flagships for decades, coordinating everything from combat operations to humanitarian missions, while giving fleet commanders the situational awareness they need to make decisions that affect thousands of sailors. America class. The Marines wanted a ship that could function as a mini carrier for F-35Bs, while still hauling enough Marines and equipment to take a beach. The America class delivers that capability, sacrificing the well deck for more aviation capacity, and proving that modern amphibious warfare looks different than it did in World War II. Wasp class. These ships spent decades proving that one platform can handle everything from launching Harrier jump jets to deploying hovercraft full of Marines to providing disaster relief after hurricanes. Sailors who served on WASP know them as cities at sea, self-contained communities with their own hospitals, machine shops, and the capability to support thousands of people for months at a time. San Antonio class. The modern amphibious transport dock that replaced ships that served from Vietnam to the War on Terror. The San Antonios brought modern systems, better habitability, and the capability to put Marines and their gear onto hostile shores with greater survivability than anything that came before. Polar class. These expeditionary mobile bases take commercial ships and convert them into floating forward operating bases for Marines in austere environments. They're not pretty, they're not fast, but they provide the support infrastructure that lets Marines operate from places with no established ports or facilities. Whidbey Island class. Built specifically to move landing craft and amphibious vehicles through their well decks and onto hostile beaches. These dock landing ships have been part of every major amphibious operation for decades, providing the capability to get Marines from ship to shore when the fighting matters most. Harper's Ferry class, a modified version of the Whidbey Island design that trades some well deck space for more cargo capacity. The compromise works because sometimes you need to carry more supplies and equipment rather than maximum numbers of landing craft. Austin class, the older generation of amphibious transport docks that served from the 60s until newer ships could replace them. For the sailors who lived aboard them through deployments to the Persian Gulf, Mediterranean, and Western Pacific, the Austins were home for months at a time during some of the most intense periods of naval operations. Seawolf class. Only 3 were built because the Cold War ended, and suddenly nobody wanted to pay for the most expensive and capable attack submarine ever designed. The Seawolves can dive deeper, run quieter, and carry more weapons than anything else underwater, representing the absolute peak of what's possible in submarine technology, even if the Navy couldn't afford more than 3. Los Angeles class. For decades, these fast attack boats formed the Silent Service's main force, tracking Soviet submarines during the Cold War and launching Tomahawk strikes during every conflict since. Submariners who served on Los Angeles-class boats learned their trade in some of the most capable attack submarines ever built, even as newer Virginia-class boats gradually take over their missions. Virginia-class, the modern attack submarine designed for a world where threats come from multiple directions, not just other submarines. Virginias bring advanced sonar, special operations capability, and modular construction that lets the Navy adapt them for future missions that haven't even been defined yet. These boats represent the future of undersea warfare. Ohio class. 18 of these submarines were built 14-carry Trident ballistic missiles as the nation's most survivable nuclear deterrent, while 4 were converted to carry 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles, and Navy SEALs for special operations. The SSBNs patrol silently in waters nobody talks about, providing the guaranteed second strike capability that makes nuclear war unwinnable. The SSGNs became floating arsenals for conventional strikes and covert operations. Columbia-class, the replacement for Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines that's being designed from the keel up for one mission, carrying nuclear missiles, while remaining undetectable for decades. The Columbia program represents the largest shipbuilding effort in Navy history because the strategic deterrent cannot have gaps or failures. Ticonderoga class. These guided missile cruisers brought the Aegis combat system to sea in the 80s and changed naval warfare forever. TICOs can track and engage hundreds of targets simultaneously, coordinate entire battle groups, and launch strikes deep inland with Tomahawk missiles. Sailors who served on cruisers know them as powerful, complex ships that demanded excellence from their crews because the systems they operated represented the cutting edge of naval technology. Arleigh Burke-class, the destroyer that became the Navy's most numerous surface combatant because the design just works. From Flight 1, ships built in the 90s, to the latest Flight 3, variants with upgraded radar and missile defense capability, Burkes handle air defense, anti-submarine warfare, surface combat, and land attack with equal competence. These ships get sent everywhere, do everything, and keep coming back for more. Zumwalt class, the stealthy destroyer that tried to revolutionize surface warfare with wave-piercing hull design and advanced gun systems. When the gun ammunition turned out to cost more per round than a missile, the Navy pivoted to installing hypersonic weapons instead. Only 3 were built, making them the rarest and most expensive destroyers in the fleet, but they represent bold thinking about what future surface combatants could be. Constellation class, the new guided missile frigate that's supposed to fill the gap between small littoral combat ships and large destroyers. With 20 planned, the Constellation class will provide air defense and anti-submarine capability in a more affordable package than building more destroyers. Though the first one is still under construction. Oliver Hazard Perry class. These ships handled convoy, escort, drug interdiction, and showing the flag in places that didn't need a full destroyer. Most have been retired or sold to allied navies, but Perry-class sailors remember them as capable ships that did their jobs without the glamour of carriers or the mystique of submarines. Freedom class, the trimaran-hulled LCS designed for speed and flexibility in shallow coastal waters. These ships deploy with mission packages that swap out depending on whether they're hunting submarines, clearing mines, or conducting surface warfare. The concept is still proving itself, but Freedom-class ships give the Navy presence in littoral zones where bigger ships can't operate safely. Independence class, the other LCS design with a distinctive 3-hull configuration that provides stability and deck space. Like the Freedom class, these ships operate with interchangeable mission modules, though their unique hull form makes them instantly recognizable. Some are being converted to dedicated mine countermeasures vessels because that mission turned out to be more urgent than anyone wanted to admit. Avenger class. These wooden-hulled minesweepers hunt for and neutralize underwater mines using sonar and robotic systems. It's unglamorous work that rarely makes headlines, but freedom of navigation depends on clearing mines from strategic waterways. The crews who operate Avenger-class ships know that one missed mine can sink a ship worth billions and kill hundreds of sailors. The Navy operates 42 different classes of support vessels, totaling 104 ships, submarine tenders, replenishment oilers, dry cargo ships, expeditionary fast transports, and more. These ships don't carry missiles or launch aircraft, but without them, the fleet stops moving. Oilers keep warships fueled thousands of miles from friendly ports. Cargo ships deliver everything from ammunition to spare parts to fresh food. Fast transports move special operations forces and their equipment, where traditional amphibious ships can't go quickly enough. For the sailors who serve on support ships, their work keeps the entire fleet operational, and they know that combat ships are only as effective as their logistics chain allows. Navy SEALs and Special Operations Forces don't operate from aircraft carriers. They need small, fast, specialized craft that can insert and extract teams from places where even a destroyer would be spotted miles away. Combat rubber raiding craft, Mark V Special Operations craft, and other specialized boats operate in rivers, coastal zones, and shallow waters where traditional naval vessels can't go. These craft prioritize speed, stealth, and flexibility over firepower, providing special warfare units the tactical mobility they need for missions in environments where silence and surprise matter more than armor and missiles. Coast Guard, Legend class national security cutter. These are the Coast Guard's flagships, the largest, most capable cutters ever built for the service. With advanced command and control systems and the ability to operate for extended periods far from shore, The Legend class handles everything from counter-narcotics interdiction to anti-terrorism operations. 10 are active with 1 more planned, giving the Coast Guard blue water capability that earlier generations of cutters couldn't match. Heritage class offshore patrol cutter, the replacement for aging medium endurance cutters that's still under construction. None are in service yet, but 11 are planned to provide long-range patrol capability for coastal defense and interdiction missions. When they arrive, the Heritage class will form the backbone of Coast Guard operations in U.S. waters. Famous class medium endurance cutter. 4 of these cutters remain active, handling missions that require more endurance than patrol boats, but don't need the full capability of a national security cutter. They've spent years conducting drug interdictions, search and rescue, and maritime law enforcement across vast ocean areas. Support ships and specialized vessels keep the Coast Guard operational across diverse missions. These range from buoy tenders that maintain navigation aids to icebreakers that keep Arctic and Great Lakes shipping lanes open during winter. While they don't make headlines, these vessels ensure maritime commerce flows safely and that Coast Guard units have the support they need wherever they operate. Boats. The Coast Guard's smaller craft include rigid hull inflatable boats, response boats, and specialized patrol vessels designed for high-speed interdiction and rescue operations close to shore. These boats operate in harbors, rivers, and coastal zones where larger cutters can't maneuver, conducting boardings, rescues, and law enforcement operations that require speed and flexibility over endurance. Army ships. General Frank S. Besson class. 8 of these large logistics vessels transport Army cargo and equipment to support operations where traditional sea lift might not reach. The Besson-class ships provide the Army with organic maritime transport capability, moving heavy equipment to places that need it without depending on Navy or commercial shipping. Runnymede class. 35 large landing craft that get Army equipment from ship to shore during amphibious operations. These craft are workhorses of Army waterborne logistics, designed to beach themselves, offload vehicles and cargo, then retract and return for another load. LCM-8. 40 mechanized landing craft optimized for carrying heavy equipment through shallow water and onto beaches. The LCM-8 has been moving tanks, trucks, and artillery from ships to hostile shores for decades, proving that sometimes the simplest solutions remain the most effective. MGen. Nathaniel Greene class. 6 large coastal tugs that maneuver vessels in ports and waterways where precision matters more than speed. These tugs provide essential support, moving ships in confined spaces and during challenging conditions, keeping Army maritime logistics flowing smoothly. Moving on to cruise missiles. The Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile lets American aircraft hit heavily defended targets from 200 miles away without flying into the teeth of enemy air defenses. With stealth features and precision guidance, JASSM gives Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps aircraft the ability to destroy high-value targets while staying outside the engagement envelope of most surface-to-air missiles. 3,600 in service means there's enough inventory to sustain extended operations. Take the JASSM design and optimize it for killing ships instead of land targets. The long-range anti-ship missile brings advanced guidance that works even when GPS is jammed, letting it hunt enemy warships across vast ocean areas. With 450 in the inventory, LRASM gives American forces a credible long-range ship-killing capability that can threaten enemy fleets from standoff distances. Tomahawk. This subsonic cruise missile has been the go-to weapon for precision strikes since Desert Storm, launched from ships and submarines to hit targets over 1,000 miles away. 4,000 Tomahawks in service means the Navy can sustain strike operations for extended campaigns, and the missile's versatility. It handles both land attack and anti-ship missions, makes it one of the most important weapons in the arsenal. The air-launched cruise missile gives B-52 bombers the ability to deliver nuclear warheads from over 1,000 miles away, forming part of America's strategic nuclear triad. 350 ALCMs provide the Air Force with a nuclear deterrent that can be launched from aircraft, complementing the land-based ICBMs and submarine-launched missiles that complete the triad. Next up is spacecraft. Delta IV. United Launch Alliance built this heavy-lift rocket to put military satellites and classified payloads into orbit when the mission is too important to risk on anything less reliable. The Delta IV has been launching national security missions for years, placing everything from reconnaissance satellites to GPS birds into their designated orbits, with a kind of dependability that classified operations demand. Global Positioning System. 30 satellites orbiting Earth provide the timing and location data that modern warfare and modern civilization depends on. The Space Force operates this constellation that enables everything from precision-guided munitions to smartphone navigation, and losing GPS would cripple not just military operations, but global commerce and infrastructure within hours. X-37B. This unmanned spaceplane conducts classified missions in orbit for months at a time before returning to Earth and landing like an aircraft. Two X-37Bs serve as reusable platforms for testing technology, deploying small satellites, and conducting experiments that the Space Force isn't discussing publicly. Whatever they're doing up there, the ability to bring hardware back from orbit and reuse the spacecraft makes the X-37B unique in the American space program. That brings us to small arms, M9. Beretta's 9mm served as the standard military sidearm for over 3 decades, and an entire generation of service members qualified on these pistols. It's being replaced by the M17, but the M9 proved reliable enough that it earned its place in military history, even if newer designs have surpassed it. M11, the compact Sig Sauer that became the carry weapon of choice for personnel who needed something smaller than a full-size service pistol. It filled its niche well, but like the M9, it's being phased out in favor of the newer M18 from the same manufacturer. M17 and M18 MHS. Sig Sauer won the modular handgun system contract by delivering what the military actually wanted, a reliable, accurate, modular pistol that soldiers could customize for different hand sizes and missions. The M17 is full-size, the M18 is compact, and both represent the current standard for American military sidearms, M1911. Colt's legendary .45 caliber pistol refuses to die because some missions still demand the stopping power and proven reliability that over a century of service has demonstrated. Special operations units keep upgraded M45 variants in service because when you absolutely need something to stop working right now, John Browning's design still delivers. The semi-automatic rifle that gave American infantry a critical advantage in World War II by letting them fire 8 rounds without working a bolt action. That distinctive ping when the end block clip ejected became one of the most recognizable sounds of the war, and General Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. M4 carbine and M4A1. The shortened M16 variant became the standard infantry rifle because urban warfare and vehicle operations demanded something more compact than a full-length rifle. The M4A1 adds full auto capability, and the platform's modularity means soldiers can configure it for whatever mission they're facing. M16. Vietnam veterans remember when this rifle showed up to replace the M14, and despite early problems, the M16 proved itself over decades of service. The A2 brought the 3-round burst. Later variants added modularity. And even though the M4 has largely replaced it, some units still issue M16s because the longer barrel improves accuracy at distance. HK416. Heckler & Koch took the M16 design, added a piston system, and created a rifle so reliable that Special Operations Forces adopted it for missions where failure isn't an option. The 416 proved itself in conditions that would choke other rifles, which is why it remains the weapon of choice for high-end units. M27 IAR. The Marines decided they wanted better accuracy than the M249 SAW could provide, so they adopted this Heckler & Koch rifle as their infantry automatic rifle. It's lighter, more accurate, and doesn't overheat as quickly, though it carries less ammunition than a belt-fed weapon. Mark 16 Mod 0 and Mark 17 Mod 0 SCAR. Special Operations needed a modular rifle family that could handle both 5.56 and 7.62 NATO, depending on the mission. FN Herstal delivered the SCAR platform, though most units ended up preferring the heavier-hitting Mark 17 over the 5.56 variant, M14. This 7.62 battle rifle served as standard issue in the 60s before the M16 replaced it, but the M14 found new life as a designated marksman rifle because that full-power cartridge hits harder and reaches farther than 5.56. HK417. When you need more range and power than an M4 provides, but don't want a full sniper rifle, Heckler & Koch's 7.62 battle rifle fills that gap. Special forces and designated marksmen use it for engagements where 5.56 just doesn't cut it. Sig Sauer's modular rifle brings piston-driven reliability and the ability to swap calibers and barrel lengths without changing the lower receiver. It's gained traction with special operations units who need flexibility without maintaining separate weapon systems. M7. This compact 5.56 rifle served primarily in special operations before newer platforms came along. It offered lightweight performance for close to medium-range work, filling a specific niche in the special operations arsenal. Mark 14 EBR. Take an M14, add a modern chassis system with rails and adjustable stock, and you get the enhanced battle rifle that Army units use for precision fire. It brings 7.62 power with the reliability of a proven platform. The Marine Corps version of the modernized M14 built specifically for their designated marksmen. The enhanced marksman rifle delivers accurate fire at ranges where standard infantry rifles start losing effectiveness. Sometimes you just need to make an M16 or M4 more accurate, without adopting a completely different weapon system. The squad-designated marksman rifle does exactly that, with optics and modifications that improve precision while keeping logistical simplicity. The Army's semi-automatic sniper system changed sniper operations by offering accurate fire with rapid follow-up shots. 7.6.2. NATO in a gas-operated platform gave snipers the ability to engage multiple targets without working a bolt. The compact semi-automatic sniper system takes everything the Mon 10 did right and packages it in a shorter, more maneuverable platform. It maintains the accuracy while improving mobility for snipers operating in varied terrain. For decades, this bolt-action rifle in 7.6.2 NATO served as the Army's primary sniper weapon. Its accuracy and reliability made it the standard against which other sniper rifles were measured. The enhanced sniper rifle upgrades the M24 by moving to 300 Winchester Magnum, giving Army snipers significantly more range and power. When 7.6.2 doesn't reach far enough, the M2010 delivers. M40 Sniper. The Marine Corps has been refining this bolt-action sniper rifle since Vietnam, and generations of Marine Scout snipers learned their craft behind an M40. Multiple variants exist, but they all share the legendary accuracy that made this rifle a legend. M1903 Springfield. This bolt-action rifle served as America's primary infantry weapon in World War I and got adapted for sniper use with a scope. It's mostly ceremonial now, but the Springfield proved that American industry could produce accurate, reliable rifles at scale. Mark 13 Sniper. Special Operations Forces needed a precision rifle in 300 Winchester Magnum for extreme range work. The Mark 13 delivers that capability with the power to engage targets well beyond 1,000 meters. The precision sniper rifle in 338 Lapua Magnum gives special operations snipers the ability to reach out past 1,500 meters. It's modular, accurate, and powerful enough to handle the most demanding long-range missions. Special Operations wanted a semi-automatic sniper rifle in 7.6.2 NATO that could deliver accuracy with the speed of follow-up shots. The sniper support rifle provides exactly that capability. Mark 22 ASR. The advanced sniper rifle in 338 Norma Magnum represents the cutting edge of sniper technology for special operations. It's replacing older rifles with improved range, accuracy, and modern features. Barrett 50 caliber M82 and M107. When you need to punch through engine blocks, disable vehicles, or engage targets over a mile away, Barrett's massive 50 BMG rifles deliver. These anti-material rifles changed what infantry could destroy with small arms. M590. Mossberg's pump-action 12-gauge handles everything from breaching doors to close-quarters combat. It's rugged enough to survive military service and simple enough that any soldier can operate it under stress. Remington Model 870. This pump-action 12-gauge has been one of the most reliable shotguns ever made, serving across all branches for decades. Whether it's breaching, defense, or close-quarters work, the 870 just works. Benelli's semi-automatic 12-gauge gives soldiers rapid follow-up shots without pumping between rounds. When speed matters in close quarters, the M1014's semi-auto action makes a difference. The modular accessory shotgun system mounts under an M4, giving soldiers instant access to breaching capability without carrying a separate weapon. It's the perfect solution for urban operations where doors need opening and close quarters threats appear suddenly. MP5. Heckler & Koch's 9mm submachine gun became legendary through decades of counterterrorism operations. Its accuracy and reliability in close quarters made it the standard for hostage, rescue, and special operations. MP7. Personal defense weapons in 4 to 6mm offer armor-penetrating capability in a compact package. The MP7 gives operators serious firepower in something barely larger than a pistol. Brugger & Thomit's 9mm subgun offers modern modularity and reliability for units needing compact firepower. Its adaptable design lets operators configure it for specific missions. M249 SAW. The squad automatic weapon brought belt-fed firepower down to the squad level in 5.5.6 NATO. For decades, it provided sustained automatic fire that rifle-armed soldiers couldn't match, though some units are now replacing it with the M27. M240. This 7.62 medium machine gun has been providing suppressive fire for American forces since the 80s. Belt-fed, reliable, and hard-hitting. The M240 delivers accurate, automatic fire at ranges where lighter machine guns lose effectiveness. M60. The Pig, every Vietnam veteran knows that nickname, served as America's general-purpose machine gun for decades. 7.62 belt-fed firepower in a package that could be carried and employed by infantry, even if it was heavier than soldiers wanted. M250. The Next Generation Squad Weapon program created this light machine gun in 277 Fury, offering dramatically improved performance over the M249. Increased range and hitting power give infantry squads capabilities they've never had before. M61 Vulcan. 6 rotating barrels and 20mm make this Gatling gun the primary armament for American fighters, firing thousands of rounds per minute. The Vulcan has been destroying enemy aircraft and ground targets since the 60s. Take the Gatling gun concept, scale it down to 7.62 NATO, and you get the minigun that helicopter door gunners and special operations forces use for overwhelming firepower. 6,000 rounds per minute turns this weapon into a buzzsaw. M2 Heavy Machine Gun. Ma Deuce has been breaking things since 1933, and no replacement has managed to surpass John Browning's 50 caliber masterpiece. Vehicle mounted, aircraft mounted, or on a tripod, the M2 provides long-range, heavy firepower that's still unmatched. GAU-19. The Gatling gun concept in 50 BMG provides devastating firepower for vehicles and aircraft. Multiple rotating barrels deliver sustained heavy fire that single-barrel weapons can't match. Mark 19 Grenade Machine Gun. Automatic 40mm grenades change infantry tactics by providing area suppression that's more powerful than machine gun fire. The Mark 19 throws high explosive rounds at targets that would laugh at rifle fire. Mark 47 Striker. Special operations needed an improved automatic grenade launcher with better accuracy and fire control. The Striker delivers programmable airburst ammunition and precision that makes it far more effective than earlier grenade launchers. M203 Grenade Launcher. The single-shot 40mm that mounts under M16s and M4s has been giving infantry squads organic, indirect fire capability for decades. Simple, reliable, and effective. M320 Grenade Launcher. Heckler & Koch's 40mm improves on the M203 with better ergonomics and the ability to use it standalone or mounted. It's replacing the 203 across the force with modern features and improved accuracy. M32 MGL. 6 40mm grenades in a revolver configuration give Marines and Special Operations Forces the ability to put enormous firepower downrange quickly. The multi-shot grenade launcher changed infantry tactics by providing sustained grenade fire. F.N. Herstall's enhanced grenade launcher module works with SCAR rifles, or standalone, offering improved range and accuracy over earlier grenade launchers. Modern fire control makes it more effective at longer distances. FG M148 Javelin. Fire and forget anti-tank missiles changed armor warfare by letting infantry destroy tanks from over 2 kilometers away without exposing themselves. The Javelin's top attack profile hits tanks where their armor is weakest. This 84mm disposable rocket launcher gives every infantry unit the ability to engage armor and fortifications. It's simple enough that any soldier can use it, powerful enough to destroy most targets. The multirole anti-armor, anti-personnel weapon system fires 84mm rounds from a reusable launcher. Different ammunition types let it handle tanks, personnel, or structures depending on what the mission requires. SMA. The shoulder-launched multi-purpose assault weapon in 83.5mm gives Marines powerful breaching and anti-armor capability. Urban combat and fortified positions meet their match with SMA's high explosive firepower. Stinger. Infantry finally got effective anti-aircraft capability with this shoulder-fired heat-seeking missile. The Stinger shoots down helicopters and low-flying aircraft, protecting ground forces from aerial attack. Mortars. The Army and Marine Corps operate 3 main mortar systems that provide infantry with organic indirect fire support. These weapons deliver high explosive rounds on target when artillery isn't available, giving ground units the ability to engage enemies behind cover or in defilade. M67. The classic American fragmentation grenade, instantly recognizable by its baseball shape and familiar weight in the hand. For generations of soldiers, this was the standard answer to clearing a room or breaking an enemy's momentum. Simple, dependable, and brutally effective, the M67 became one of those pieces of gear everyone trained with and never forgot. M111 Offensive Hand Grenade. Built for close, violent spaces where fragmentation would be more dangerous to friendlies than the enemy. Instead of spraying metal, it relies on blast pressure to do the work, making it a favorite for urban combat and confined interiors. It replaced older designs by doing the same job more safely, proving that sometimes less shrapnel means more control. Scalable offensive hand grenade. This is the modern answer to changing battlefields, designed to adapt instead of forcing soldiers to adapt to it. Its modular construction allows it to be configured for different effects depending on the mission, reflecting how the US military now prioritizes flexibility over one-size-fits-all solutions. It's a grenade built for planners who know tomorrow's fight won't look like yesterday's. M18 smoke grenade. Not every grenade is about destruction, and the M18 proves that concealment can be just as powerful. Tossed to mark positions, signal units, or block enemy sightlines, its colored smoke has guided troops, aircraft, and rescue teams for decades. Simple, visual, and reliable, it's been quietly saving lives since World War II. M84 flashbang. Designed to overwhelm the senses instead of tearing through walls, this grenade dominates close quarters fighting. The blinding flash and concussive blast create a brief moment of total confusion, giving entry teams the edge they need when seconds matter most. Used properly, it's a non-lethal tool that became essential for modern room clearing and hostage rescue operations. M14TH3 incendiary hand grenade. Designed for destruction rather than blast, this grenade turns into a violent ball of burning thermite the moment it ignites. Instead of exploding, it melts through equipment, vehicles, weapons, and anything else made of metal, reaching temperatures hot enough to destroy sensitive gear beyond recovery.